I'll just give you like a big picture, and first of all, like what a time to be alive. That's kind of what I'm present. Just on everything, not just Bitcoin, but just everything we're happening. Just this big shift on so many levels. And also, I'm feeling this like what a just living in the Bay Area. Like I came to the Bay Area in '99. I witnessed so many things that now I'm watching fucking shows and movies about. Like I came in '99, which was the same year Steve Jobs went back to Apple. Google didn't exist. I think was just starting to happen. eBay, PayPal, I saw those things firsthand. Like I heard it. Like I even met people like, oh, I'm number 5 at Google, and like at parties, or it's just like or I know like it was just those are just kids with people with ideas that change the world. Now we all live this world where we get to drive electric cars and our computers. I mean, we had dial up like internet just like 20 years ago. It wasn't that long ago.
Mhm.
And the invention of Bitcoin and all that. So just um and I on the drive on the fly back, I watched this movie called, probably, I don't know, I couldn't even find it later, but it's called Stupid Money. Have you guys heard of this movie? It's literally called Stupid Money because institutional money and big money refer to retail money as stupid money. Like we're stupid, we don't know what we're doing. And it's called Stupid Money. It was the story about what happened with GameStop, and how the people came together and say, fuck big money, fuck the institutions, and just people coming together. And that's the power of us coming together. That's the power of us working together and using these technologies to really unite and work together against these big money, big institutions that think they have all the power. And literally had me in tears. Like I was watching this, wasn't the greatest movie, but I could relate to it so much and just really had me in tears. Um, and at least this is the intention we have with Soul Out too. It's kind of like, fuck, man, we're coming together with this power of decentralization, with these powers to relate to the guy in a different way. I mean, it's just it just has me in tears. Um, and then yeah, so the same thing with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is just bunch of geeks, cyberpunks, they call themselves, came together with this idea. It's like, and came after the 2008 with big collapse, where like, okay, these guys don't know what they're doing. We need to create our own money. We, the people, retail people, the stupid money, stupid people. Fuck those guys. We're gonna create our own money. And everyone, 15 years later from that initial thing, to have now big money, which also call themselves smart money, following suit, following what we're doing. They're like, okay, well, we wanna these guys, we fought them, we tried to shut them down. There was a what was this called? Project Choke Point, I think was called Project Choke Point, right, Casey? Where they made it extremely difficult to get onboarded into crypto, and they try everything under the book. They try to scare us. They tried news. They tried suing people, putting people in jail, and Bitcoin proceeded and proceeded and proceeded to a point where like we can't beat them. We gotta join them. That's the biggest overall story. That why to me this is a historic event, because those guys that did every trick in the book to try to shut down and stop the power of us coming together, because to me that's what Bitcoin is, us coming together. And they couldn't, and they had to finally bow down and join us and be like, okay. um so that's the significance of it. And then how that gonna impact the whole space. um it's, maybe I'll pass that to Casey for him to give his perspective on it. But that's the big picture that I'm holding, that has me like in shivers, and like yeah, what a time to be alive. And it inspires me even more to do what we're doing. That's the last thing I want to say, is because that's what we're doing. A bunch of guys with an idea of how to relate with Mama Guy in a different way, in a decentralized way, and to get past the idea of ownership and that we own nature, and to give that back and do it in a decentralized way. And hopefully 10 years from now, 15 years from now, after they're done trying to fight us, they realize it's the way forward. Anyway, that's my sentiment for today. Um, and I'll pass it to Casey of why today is a historic day.
Why is today a historic day? Well, sometime in 2008, Satoshi Nakamoto wrote the white paper on Bitcoin and launched it on a couple of servers to create the first decentralized currency run fully on machines owned by nobody. And he made it a secure digital asset that is scarce. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins. And as we go with Bitcoins being lost and locked up in wallets and Satoshi's wallet himself,
Never
those
been.
coins haven't moved since he launched the protocol. Bitcoin actually is, deflationary. Not going to explain all the ways that Bitcoin works, but that was the dawn of digital money effectively. And since then it's grown and grown and grown and grown and grown and grown. And today is the first day that the powers that be, the statutory regimes, institutional money has, officially adopted Bitcoin and recognized it as a, legitimate form of currency. Even though they don't call it a currency, it's an asset. It's actually considered an asset, much like real estate. So owning a Bitcoin, a digital piece of the blockchain, is considered real estate. And the ETFs that went through, for those of you who don't know, there's been, futures ETFs are already approved, and future ETF is just, trading on the volatility of, the asset, trading on the price of the asset, but not actually owning, not actually buying, not actually increasing the market cap of the asset. It's basically just a pure derivative. The ETFs that got approved yesterday were spot ETFs. Spot ETF means, the electronic trade fund that basically enables all of the, stock brokers in the world effectively, to offer Bitcoin as an asset class to, their investors, their people. Now anybody and everybody can buy Bitcoin like through a stock exchange. And the electronic like the brokerage, the fund that manages that ETF is obligated to maintain a balance of actual Bitcoin that is traded in their fund, which means billions and billions of dollars that has been sitting on the sideline, wanting to participate in this new digital asset class and haven't been able to because, institutions abide by statutory laws, and the statutory laws have said, nope, can't do that. So until now, literally hundreds of trillions of dollars. I actually should I should pull the charts up. I won't right now. Literally, like something ridiculous, like well over $90 trillion or something, that actively trade stocks hasn't been able to trade Bitcoin, and now they can. And all that money has to actually go into buying the Bitcoin asset itself. So, as Christian was saying, back in 2021, 2022, you know, the SEC and, deep state and all the powers that be, ran so much FUD on the industry and implemented, what's known as what is it? What is it called again?
Yeah.
The
It's called Project Choke Point, I think.
yeah, Project Choke Point 2.0. They took down Silicon Valley Bank, they took down, Silvergate Bank, they took down, all the ways that money, especially in particular in the United States, where money could get into the ecosystem. They basically terminated, people's ability to wire funds into crypto. And they tried really hard to keep that, from keep money from going into the space. Now, that's, if I was a stock trader, I'd probably look up Silvergate stock and go buy a bunch of it. Because now that's a moot point, because now money can just flow effortlessly into Bitcoin. And as it flows into Bitcoin, raises the market cap of Bitcoin. Bitcoin's currently sitting at around, you know, just south of $1 trillion market cap. And, you know, we can see that go to $2 trillion, easily. Like within the next couple of months, that can easily go to $2 trillion. And when that happens, the price of Bitcoin goes up, and all of the money that already exists in the ecosystem is worth more, right? So everybody that's been holding Bitcoin and has bought Bitcoin and really any other altcoin. Well, let me just start with Bitcoin. This is how the trickle down effect works. You know, stock exchanges, people buy Bitcoin in an ETF. Those exchanges have to go those exchanges have to go buy actual Bitcoin in order to maintain the balance of their ETF. That increases that pours money into the ecosystem, increases the price of Bitcoin. Everyone that's the current holder of Bitcoin now has more money. So now they take profits on their money, and they take those profits and they invest in Ethereum next. That's why you're seeing Ethereum pumping, because people are expecting an Ethereum ETF to get approved next. And so speculators are driving the price of Ethereum up. It's likely going to go to 4,000. Then that ETF is going to get approved. And then money will flow out of Ethereum into the rest of the altcoin space. So as institutional money drives the price of Bitcoin up to wherever it's going to go, $1 million eventually, that 20x, that's going to 20x the value of currency in the decentralized currency, in the decentralized digital asset space, without new money from consumers actually having to put the money into the space. The money's going to come from the institutions. Like the profits, the gains are going to come from institutional adoption of Bitcoin first, then Ethereum, then likely Chainlink, then likely, something else big like HBAR or Solana. And one after the other, the digital assets, these decentralized assets that they can't actually control. Like they don't actually have the keys to those assets like they do every other world currency and every other, you know, every other, stock for that matter. They can basically, force the price of any other asset really in the stock exchange to go up or down so that they make more money. They can't do that with digital assets that are decentralized, which is why this is a red letter day, which is why this is such a miraculous and like such, I mean, it's the biggest win for crypto ever. And this day will probably be written in history books, given we all survived this this fiasco that we're living in. But our kids will be reading about this day in their history books as the day that, you know, the Bitcoin ETF was approved. So that's why it's a big deal. And it basically, you know, among other things, you know, validates digital assets as, you know, a real world asset. And validates. Like we've been fighting for validation for almost what, 15 years now. And now we have it by the institutional space. And whether they realize it or not, you know, their greedy fucking their greed is basically going to fuel the explosion of this industry, much like, you know, Silicon Valley did in the dot-com days. You know, when Silicon Valley crashed, or when the dot-com crash happened, what most people don't really like pay attention to is, you know, there was really no dot-com crash for the builders, for the developers, for the people that were like creating the technology that we all basically rely on every day today. Like there was no crash for them. The crash was for the investors that were speculating and, you know, oh, lost your money on, you know, stocks and shit. That money went right into the pockets of the builders and they just kept building. Same thing's going to happen with the crypto space. You know, the frontline news is going to be like, oh, Bitcoin went to 60 and then crashed down to 40, it's over. Or it went to 100 and then it crashed down to 50, it's over. That money is going right into the hands of the decentralized builders and developers, which is going to fuel an explosion of blockchain, you know, blockchain industry that's going to wind up, you know, being the thing that, you know, we rely on, our kids for sure rely on, you know, to live their lives, to live their everyday lives. You know, they're going to be interacting with protocols, services, and whatnot that all run on decentralized rails. So, hurrah. People are going to be having huge parties all over the planet. I wish I was at them. Do you, Brian or Austin, have any like deeper questions about that? Because I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
um,
Nothing like popping up. I mean, that was a great explanation. I was curious if they actually had to buy, or if they were just actually buy, like the money that's flowing in now goes to Bitcoin. Um, you answered that. So, yeah, it's amazing. I like Christian told me the other day, I sent him some article where it was something like, oh, Bitcoin's going to drop 50%. And he's like, it's just another day in crypto, Brian. It's like,
Yeah. No, yeah, they actually have to buy Bitcoin from existing holders of Bitcoin because, you know,
yeah,
there's no way that they can print more Bitcoin. That's what the miners do. But the miners have a limited, you know, like Bitcoin is printed at, I forget what the rate is, like 2 or 3% a year. Like, so in that way it's inflationary, you know, but the amount of Bitcoin that is mineable, minted, you know, every day, is going to get cut in half in April. That's what the Bitcoin halving is about. So, you know, that's another, I mean, traditionally that's been the start of every bull run in crypto history, is because, you know, when the miners, you know, suddenly, like when the amount of Bitcoin that's minted into supply gets cut in half overnight, like suddenly there's a supply shock, you know, and standard supply demand economics demand that, you know, the price goes up.
and that's happening
Got to go up.
in the first week of April. and that happens every 4 years.
happening.
So in the beginning, there was miners could mine that much. Right, you guys get this? You could mine that much Bitcoin in a year. 4 years later, that got cut in half. 4 years later, that got cut in half. 4 years, that got cut in half. And it's getting cut in half again in April. So along with this ETF and the supply of how much Bitcoin's coming in is getting cut in half. That's why that's why we've seen these 4 year cycles, because those 4 year cycles is where the thing happens.
Until eventually there's no more mining. Is that
Yeah,
where it will end?
yeah. So
No,
that's
Bitcoin will be mined for hundreds of years still. It's just gonna keep getting cut in half.
Yeah.
well,
You
no,
know, but I don't remember what the calculation is, like how many years it can actually be mined until the very last Bitcoin will eventually be mined, but it's well over 100 years, I think.
yeah, just less and less. Um, yeah, and Bitcoin being the first one and being the biggest one. That's why there's Bitcoin maxes. By the way, it's 11/11 on the 11th.
Yes.
Uh,
What? 11/11 on 11/11.
uh,
Somebody say a prayer. Austin, bless our Bitcoin holdings.
so Bitcoin dominates crypto. Everything flows into Bitcoin and out of Bitcoin. So the way Bitcoin moves, it impacts the whole market. Kind of, Casey explained a little bit of that. So that's why we look at Bitcoin, because Bitcoin moves, everything else follows. Bitcoin goes down and everything else follows. If Bitcoin moves 20%, the altcoins and everything else will move 40%, 50%, stuff like that. So that's why we look at Bitcoin, even though a lot of our investments are not in Bitcoin.
So, you guys want to see some charts?
Um, I like charts. I don't know if Brian knows.
Yeah, I'm down.
And then the next thing I want to talk and just talk amongst us, but I would actually want to share this video with the rest of the group, because the thing we're talking about. But yeah, we made a big decision last week when we were together, to create a sold out portfolio. And after we're done talking about Bitcoin, I want to talk about that.
Great.
So this is the big, this is sort of the view I look at every day. This is Bitcoin on the 15-minute chart, and this is Ethereum. So you can
Oh, wow.
see that Bitcoin was up here at 47 just prior to the ETF. This little line that shot up here, this candle, was when when the SEC's Gary Gensler's account got hacked on Twitter, and he announced that the ETFs are approved. The price shot up and then immediately tanked. And then right around here, the Bitcoin was like the ETFs were actually approved, and we had some volatility. And then early, when is this? This is early this morning, when the first trade, when the first ETF came online, money flowed into Bitcoin and pumped the price up to 49,000. And then, of course, we have, an immediate retracement from that, because big money likes to make more money. So it's very unlikely that we see like a straight line up, because if $2 trillion, if $1 trillion wanted to come into Bitcoin, and they tried to buy it all at once, the price would just keep going up, right? It would go up to what it would go up to. It would go up to almost 50 or almost 100K, like overnight. But they don't want to buy Bitcoin at 100K. They don't want to buy it all the way up to 100K. They want to scare people into thinking that Bitcoin's going to, retrace back to 32, in order to buy what they're selling without moving the price very much. They want to try to get $1 trillion into Bitcoin at, somewhere between 44,000 and 48,000. If they can, they want to try to get $1 trillion into Bitcoin in this price range, which would mean, people would have to sell. People would have to sell thinking it's going to go lower than that when it's actually not going to go lower than that because they're buying it up. So that's Bitcoin. And then this is Ethereum. So when the ETF, just prior to the ETF being approved, or when the ETF was approved, Ethereum had dipped to here and then just has been on this rager, which is people selling Bitcoin, taking profits on their Bitcoin and buying Ethereum, knowing that the Ethereum ETF's coming next. And, everyone knows exactly where Ethereum's going. It's going to 29 and then to 4,000. So people are buying Ethereum. This is keep an eye on Chainlink because it's in the top 5, altcoins. Chainlink is, one of the few altcoins that actually has real world utility that businesses actually have to buy in order to onboard into, in order to integrate like Web 2 applications and Web 2 services into decentralized space. And then this is the value of the dollar. So just to give you a quick preview of, what's what. This is the value of the dollar this is what the dollar did since COVID, right? We printed a whole bunch of money in 2021, and then the rest of the world, printed more money than the US did, and the value of the dollar against the other major world currencies, went to all-time highs here, almost all-time highs at 114, and then retraced after COVID. And, smart money thought I was going to retrace all the way back down here, but then this crazy event happened where the dollar went back and broke this high and acted like it was going to go higher. And then the BRICS nations thing came out, and now the dollar is falling again and is likely going to go all the way back down here and touch this upward trend line. So when the dollar goes down, crypto market tends to go up like 80% of the time, because most of cryptocurrencies are valued against the dollar.
And
currently.
I want to say something about
So,
that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so in Bitcoin, I don't remember who said this, but there was this kind of like Bitcoin is like learning another language. Bitcoin is like you're learning Spanish. At first, you translate everything in your head from like Spanish to English. At some point you just shift and you just start speaking and thinking in that language. And Bitcoin is like that. So right now we all think, oh, one Bitcoin is what is it? 45,000. So that's equal that. But at some point, one Bitcoin becomes one Bitcoin. You start to speak Bitcoin or Ethereum. And I had that actually happen to me in 2021 and 22 when I was so deep every day, spending a couple hours on this stuff. And when it came to trading NFTs, I was like, you look at the price of it, one NFTs, one Ethereum or 5 Ethereum or half Ethereum. And I don't even do the math anymore. It's like, oh, this cost me 9 Ethereum. And so you start to think about that. And from that perspective, a lot of people in crypto or Bitcoin maxis, they ask him what's the value of Bitcoin. They're all going to say one Bitcoin is one Bitcoin. And the price of the dollar is going down. And that's why a lot of Bitcoin maxis would even say there's no top to how high Bitcoin can go because there's no bottom of how low the dollar can go. So just kind of wanted to give you that invitation for you to start thinking about as we're in a digital asset business with Soldo to really kind of start to think about that language of decentralized, currencies and think in terms of Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana more so than you're thinking about to try to translate it in your head to dollars, which is the old language, and it's a dying one, from my perspective. So just kind of, yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Nice.
Yeah, eventually, 1 Satoshi, which is the smallest denomination of a Bitcoin. They're called sats. 16 decimal points on a Bitcoin will be worth, the equivalent of $1. And people will be like, oh yeah, I can buy bread for 8 Satoshis, 8 sats. And, when Bitcoin, like the, economists will speak about this in lots of different ways, but, the general consensus is, once the, a relative, even predictable margin of um, uh, portfolios in like the derivative space, gets allocated, gets distributed into Bitcoin, then the price of Bitcoin will really stabilize. And you won't see as many, it won't be traded as much because there won't be as much volatility. When the price of Bitcoin stabilizes, wherever it happens to stabilize at $1 million or $2 million or $5 million, like that's the point that people will really start valuing like real world items and services and whatnot in Bitcoin, and they'll that value equation in their heads will be calculated in Satoshis, because at a $1 million Bitcoin, unless you're buying a house,
Oh, yeah.
it's less relevant than understanding what the cost of bread is in Satoshis.
I saw some Bitcoin ATMs down near San Jose.
Yeah, Bitcoin ATMs have been around for
for a long time.
quite a while now, but now they're going to get far more popular.
Well,
So
there's
this is
a whole
Bitcoin's
country
life cycle.
that which country was it? No, it wasn't Ecuador. Which country, South America,
Bolivia.
that embrace Bitcoin as their national currency? And there you could buy your coffee, your bread, everything you could think of in Bitcoin. What country was that? I'm spacing out now.
I don't know. There's several now.
In South Africa.
I don't remember.
And I've heard of people that are there. Just you get your wallet and you could buy anything, cup of coffee, bottle, water, anything and anywhere. You could use it.
So this is always, good to look at. I think this is more for Brian, unless you're familiar with this chart. This is the Bitcoin chart since, inception, really. This only goes back to when it started being, when it made it on the Bitstamp chart, which is the oldest exchange. So data goes back to 2011. And, this was the first, major bull market in 2017-18. And here's the double top in 2021.
What's crazy,
Right.
big bull run went from like $1 to $1,000, which is like 1,000x, but it's such a small blip, you can't even see it in here.
Yeah, when like the first real bull run was way back in 2013 when it went to $1,277.
Yeah.
And we thought that was, we thought that was huge, because it was huge, from $264 to $1,200. There was like a 10x from top to top, right? And then bear market. And then this blip, you can barely even see next to where it went next.
Wow.
20,000 in 2018. This was the bull market. This was the height back in 2013. And this top of this market is a tiny little thing, tiny little blip next to where it went in 2021. which is once again going to happen, you know, when
25.
Bitcoin goes to $1 million. Looks like it's, you know, it's nothing. This is $1 million way up here. I put the stop of my chart here at 600K because I think that's as high it's gonna go, high as it's gonna go in this bull run.
Crazy, crazy.
Just speculatively speaking. Anyways, this
So
is
as
where we are now.
I got a question. It's more along the lines of as money goes into Bitcoin, is it sort of redistributed in a way to all of the other, I don't know what to call them, but programs that are or coins that are sort of integrated with Bitcoin and Ethereum? Like I hear, you know, this works with, this is a layer 2, this is a layer 3, like.
Well, so the way it works is, so for someone to buy a Bitcoin, big institution, someone has to be willing to sell their Bitcoin, right? Because there is a new Bitcoin. You can't, just only if so many Bitcoins get printed every day, very small amount. Like I think like 3 Bitcoin, something very small. So if someone, the institution wants to come and buy, $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, someone needs to be willing to sell their Bitcoin. And these are people like us. They're like stupid money, retail money. And usually they sell their Bitcoin and then they take that money and they put it into Ethereum. So it trickles down. That's how. And then, but Ethereum, even at best case scenario, Ethereum has a 10x. But if you buy something on Ethereum, like a layer 2 on Ethereum, has a lot return that could be 20x, 50x, 100x. But it's bigger risk, bigger reward. So smart people balance their portfolio. They have some Bitcoin, they have some Ethereum, and they have some altcoins. I don't know, did I answer your question?
Kind of. I'm just interested in how, like, if you put money in Bitcoin, like, or if you're putting money in, because I've been listening to some of those things you've been sending me from Ron, and he mentions like as money goes into Ethereum, this is going to pump, and this is going to pump, and this is going to pump, and sort of the
About Ethereum as
inter
an ecosystem,
the
not Ethereum the coin.
Most money enters the ecosystem, like the ETFs, and I don't know the details. That's be worth looking at.
Mhm.
But most money enters the ecosystem, obviously through banks, and they, initially buy a stable coin because it's traded 1-to-1,
Mhm.
right? So you can on-ramp into USDC. This one is more of probably the most centralized stable coin. It's owned by Circle, which owns Coinbase. And you can see this is the market cap of USDC. So it at most had $500 billion in it, during like after the crash in 2021, like money exited out of tokens into stable coins. And now it's down to 24 billion. The largest one is Tether. So Tether, this is Tether's market cap. So Tether can just, like, the group that invented Tether, it's the oldest stable coin. They can mint new Tether at will. So basically, they maintain a supply so that the crypto market can use a stable coin. And when big money onboards into the space, usually they'll buy Tether like directly from Tether. And so if a big ETF is trying to onboard $100 billion of their clients' money into the crypto space, they have to buy $100 billion worth of Tether, and that $100 billion goes into Tether's physical bank account, right? And Tether gives them $100 billion worth of USDT tokens. And those USDT tokens are traded for Bitcoin from holders of Bitcoin that are willing to sell their Bitcoin at whatever price, current price. And then those people get the Tether. So $100 billion would go into, people's wallets. And, we're in an upward trending market. So they're most of the time are going to immediately, spend those Tether to buy Ethereum, to buy other digital assets that, they think are going to rise in value. So that's how the money gets, gets spread around the ecosystem.
I see. I see. I'm looking at it as like sort of a house with subcontractors. You've got the house, and then you've got all these subcontractors that work on the house, and each one of those subcontractors is influencing the overall house. But that makes a lot of sense, Casey. It doesn't really relate to my house concept, but I see that.
This is the market. This is the chart for on the weekly for the market cap for Tether, which I like to keep eyes on, because the more this goes up, the more money is flowing into the digital asset space, and generally is getting ready to be positioned into digital assets. So, I mean, there was a spike here, which was Tether actually printing more Tether. But generally Tether, is this, is a pure supply demand, mechanic that governs how much the total market cap is. But as you can see, like this is like, you can just watch the money flow into the space, knowing that the majority of the money is coming from ETFs. Like all of this gradual curve was leading up to the ETF. And now you're seeing these massive spikes. These are ETFs like dropping, billions of dollars at a time into Tether in order to, prepare for buying Bitcoin.
Wow.
You see that? Like this is probably, from 93.6 to 94. So, it's like $400 million at a time. They're buying like $400 million worth of Tether at a time. And then, putting it in their fund so that they can, so that their customers can buy Bitcoin, which is another like super exciting thing. Like, speculators can talk until their cows come home about, what they think the price of Bitcoin is going to do, in the short term, but like the reality is, like there's, I don't remember, what was there, like 9 ETFs that got approved? Like those, like their business is investment instruments, is investment assets, and they want, like every one of those, like those businesses wants to be like the category king of investing for digital assets, not the least of which is Bitcoin, right? So like up until today, and from today, probably through the rest of the year, like they have armies of, marketing specialists that are contacting, sending out emails, calling every one of their investors saying, hey, look, you can trade Bitcoin now. You should really diversify your portfolio and own at least 10% of, have at least 10% of your portfolio in Bitcoin. That's what our smart advisors, legal teams, blah, 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 recommend. It's, the highest grossing, asset class. I mean, you get the highest returns on those assets, blah, 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 blah. Like they have armies of marketing experts, selling Bitcoin to literally millions of people right now. So if you're concerned about whether or not
Well,
whether or
Marshall,
not Bitcoin's gonna go up. You can rest assured that's, let me go back to the Bitcoin chart,
and it
that, you know,
literally they have advertisers now for Bitcoin. There's
like
actual.
the highest paid marketing agents on the planet are trying to sell Bitcoin right now. So you're gonna see, I mean, you've already seen some of the ads come out, but we're gonna see advertisements for the rest of the year. You know, people are gonna get called and, you know, sold Bitcoin for the rest of the year, and this price is gonna go
That's another
fucking up.
thing to really point out. That we've gotten to this point of Bitcoin where it's $1 trillion, which is worth in one of the top 10 company in the world. Uh, very few companies in the world are close to $1 trillion. We've gotten here with zero marketing. Like there has been zero marketing on Bitcoin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's funny that, you know, and from that perspective, Bitcoin is kind of pre-viral. So
yeah.
anyway, this is Bitcoin on the 15-minute chart, you know, which is what I'm keeping eyes on now, because this is the portfolio that's
Yeah, let's talk
um
about that really quick. And I do want to share this maybe with our this video with their delegates. One, a lot of them are not into crypto, so even this part so far is very educational for a lot of them if they take the time to watch this. Um, but I just also want to share with everyone that's gonna hopefully watch this later is that we were together with Casey and Austin and AD, and we had a magical week together where we did a lot of work, a lot of visioning, a lot of checking in and meditating and stuff. And all of us together with the help of the Oracle, with the help of Casey's wife, AD, we really pull cards, we talked, we meditated, we explore. And really the idea came was, can we self-fund to an extent at least? How can we self-fund? What can we do to self-fund ourselves? There's a lot of different ideas. Some of you heard about the idea with the cameras. We did buy cameras, but I think we missed that boat. And I was really like, how can we do this? And the proposal, what if the three of us and the core team combines our portfolios? And I'm gonna be transparent with you guys. This is pretty edgy because right now, as you've heard everything, we're in this golden period where that $20,000 we're putting in our portfolio, we're putting those gains into Soldal. That was the basically decision that we decided to make. And that $20,000 could, I'm giving up on from my portfolio that instead of me getting those gains, I'm giving those gains to Soldal because we believe in what we're doing so much and we stand behind that. And anyway, so I'm really excited for one. It feels like we makes us be a lot more coherent and a lot more aligned and a lot more united. And I really appreciate Casey taking that on to manage that portfolio. And him willing to um one thing the cards showed us is if we could do this without worrying and truly trusting, we'll be very successful. But it is hard when you're managing that much money, and in a way, so much is riding on this. To not have some sense of worry. And so I kind of really appreciate Casey looking at this, managing this. Um, so I feel really good about this decision, and it felt edgy and scary. Uh, and maybe Austin can share something for his end if he wants to. Then we can pass it on to Casey in terms of what we decide to do with that.
Would you like me to share?
Want to just how's that for you? Any
yeah,
thoughts?
how do you feel about it, Austin?
How do you?
You know, yeah, well, what I just want to, the wider space is first of all, it was really wonderful to be able to be in your home, Casey, and with your beloved 80 and see what you've built, and Brian, just, to fill you in, they, 80 had a sense that they were supposed to move to this place from Ashland, Oregon, and a friend of Casey's named Tifa, who we've interacted with before on Zoom calls, was asked to go look at this place, and it said, it needed some work, and but it was in a really great neighborhood. So they went out there kind of blind and realized that they had a huge project, no insulation, water damage, broken pipes, those sorts of things. And I really, and the other thing is that when the market crashed a couple years ago, Casey was managing, funds, and that day, the ceiling that he's sitting in right now, the room he's in right now, collapsed. So basically, I had water and debris all over his control center. And so, I mean, first of all, Casey and Nadie's trust in one another, the way that they work together, polarized but loving beings, and their willingness just to go into his home. I mean, we all remarked like normally we would probably not want or choose to spend that much time with people in an enclosed space, and yet somehow it worked because I think that we're all on a creative mission together, and that was a really beautiful aspect of it. And so there was certainly things happening in discussions, but there was also spaciousness. There was 80 playing her piano, vision boards happening, other people being invited into space. Most of us slept in a little bit, and it was, so we were trying to honor winter. And yet at this sort of the last, and we're thinking about different ideas, and really Casey and Christian were thinking about these ideas while Adi and I were kind of in our own discussions about the temple of soil and other things. But there just became times where it's like, okay, we're going to go in this direction. Do you think that should happen? And we'd be like, yes, this should happen. Let's go in this direction. And so, and I know that you, Casey, as usual, we're like, hey, really holding it down, in terms of you're the one that knows how to jigger the cryptos, right? And so, and because this is such an important part, right? How are we funding? Soil DAO is here to fund regenerative projects. And here we are trying to figure out a way that we can also fund regenerative projects, but really first and foremost, our project. And so we did have a spread where it's like one idea was like we asked for investors, the other we asked for we do it ourselves. And it just kind of came up, let's try to do it ourselves. And that's when this got, the timing on this is just incredible. And so Christian and Casey, started to build the portfolios for the three of us, and really start to, and it felt like another thing, just we're all investing in this. We're saying this matters. And that also felt just really powerful. Like, and for these guys who are thinking it through and debating a lot of, back and forth. Should we do this? Should we not? Cars, the cameras, blah, 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 all this stuff. And then, but then there's a decision like, okay, we're going in this direction. And then they got on it. And the other beautiful thing about it, serendipitously, is it, on the day we're leaving, we get to meet Casey's mom. And there's just something about, being able to meet somebody's family member. I mean, a mom is like, all of us have a mom, and it's crazy, right? And the mom had a big, huge responsibility of bringing us into the world. So just to get a glimpse of her and spend a few minutes with her, it just, it felt like, okay, it's on the one hand, it's an international thing that we're considering wanting to do. And yet at the same time, it felt like, oh, this is just like family talking to one another, and a beautiful, wonderful, somewhat dysfunctional sometimes like exuberant, whatever. It's like, we're just like, we loved each other, and appreciated what was going on. And the other thing that I'll say, we talked about, tech and wisdom and those sorts of things. And, Casey was talking about his experience of being a technostic. And like, well, what is that? And it's like, well, how do you mix spirit and spirit and soul and technology? And so that got me fired up, and started to listen to the Technosis book, which has inspired Casey. And but all in all, it was, it felt very organic, and it felt very, on the one hand, has worldwide repercussions. On the other hand, it's just happening in this beautiful domestic setting with this giant fireplace and this beautiful room. And, Dan Ellsberg Steinway piano in the corner and cats running about. I mean, it was just, it was not a sterile thing. It was a very alive,
Cold
al-
plunge and hot
yeah,
tub.
yeah, cold plunges and hot tubs, and it was like it was elemental and digital. It was truly kind of technosis, right? It had I don't know. I don't I don't know if that's helpful or not, but quite an experience. And so and so grateful that you, Brian, are in on this too, because I just know how much you care about this and are learning about it as well. And just the journey that we've all been on as, people in the design space, but also in the LCL space, and also, in this crypto space. Like, you and I being really the neophytes. It's like, okay, what is this thing? How does this work? You know, it's still a bit overwhelming to me, but I'm grateful to be part of it, and knowing that I don't have to understand it fully, because I have brothers that understand it way better than I do. And then I can be in my wheelhouse, like, okay, these are the things that I can offer. So it was exciting in that aspect too.
So
That's amazing.
in other words, you feel really good
Thank
about
you, Austin.
I feel good about
sold
it.
off
Yeah.
portfolio.
I feel surprised, it's like, and that's, it's like Christian saying, living the dream. It's like, I would have never thought that I would be spending a New Year's in Asheville in the Appalachians area that I don't really know very well with, this incredible musician who brought me to the tears the first time. And her husband, this like warm-hearted mafioso go-getter, like fucking crush it type, and learn about his family and his brothers and his sister, and get to listen to 80 talk about her upbringing, and just spending time together and just talking, and going to Whole Foods, and you know and another experience, like going into Whole Foods just with this sort of different level of consciousness and possibility, and totally upsetting one of the checkout people, because they're like, who the fuck is, it was weird. It's like people from the Matrix come, like people from another place entering the Matrix, and like the Matrix being, "Wow, what's happening?" So many different like experiences. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Awesome,
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you.
So,
Mhm.
I'm gonna show you what I'm
Yeah,
doing here.
Yeah, and just one last thing, one sentence, that all this happened, right before this historic thing that I don't even really get. It's like this watershed moment in crypto, that we were just hanging out in the new year, talking about stuff, thinking about things, and then suddenly putting this portfolio together, and then boom, okay, now what do we do? It's pretty cool.
It
Yes.
is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, this is the chart this is the primary chart I've been watching, right? Bitcoin on the 15-minute, with all my indicators and lines and whatnot on it. And we made this decision, to do this right around here, where Bitcoin was already, had already, pumped quite a bit, which was, for me as a TA guy as well, my technical analysis is, pretty good. It was really uncomfortable for me to also, get, to put money into a thing and to be buying Bitcoin at this price, right?
Well, no, can I
So,
correct you there for a second? We made a decision down on the bottom here, just on the bottom of this fucking trough, whatever it's called. And by the time we were moving from portfolio to portfolio, we're watching all these green wicks go up and up and up. Like, fuck, like we're missing the train. What do we do? Like,
yeah,
I'm
we
sweating
probably flipped the
bullets.
cards on, we
Kate's
probably flipped the
sweating
cards
bullets. And
on
us
the 8
Canadian,
or
like, what are you
something.
guys stressing about?
Yeah.
So by the time we're able to actually put the money in the same place, we were already where Casey was pointing to.
Yeah, I think we flipped the cards on Sunday. And then we woke up Monday morning and we're like, okay, let's start doing this. And I started, I also helped these guys, secure their portfolios in the previous week, and make sure CoinStats is set up and all of their, assets are locked up in a ledger device, etc. So then we started the process of, liquidating, assets in order to get 20K from each of our portfolios. And I was doing that here on Monday morning, while while Bitcoin was pumping from, from 44 all the way to 47. So by the time I had, the bulk of, our combined investment in, it was already at 47, and I was sweating. I was like, oh man, I would have far more comfortably bought at, 43 at this level. Anyway, we got in around here, and then, I started like positioning the portfolio, sort of cautiously and strategically, knowing that I want to reserve funds for dips. If it dips, down to 32 or 38, that we didn't put, all of our money in at 47.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that all week. You can see all my crazy lines on here. I've been doing that, pretty much all week, babying the portfolio along. So this is where it's at now.